look at the size of this thing. It's absolutely huge. That's a 3-inch voice coil on a 6-inch mid. You are gonna love this build. This is a speaker kit from a company called HiVi Swan. HiVi has been in the DIY speaker game for a very long time. Their drivers are used in the legendary Overnight Sensation kit available at Parts Express. So when they reached out to ask if my viewers would like to see one of their kits, I jumped on it. I'm about 10 minutes into unboxing this kit and I am in absolute love with it. You're not gonna find a kit that has this many extras and this much attention to detail. Keep watching and I'll show you what I mean. All of the pieces have a 45-degree bevel except for this one. This is the frame for the grill. It came with all the hardware you need to build a grill, including the grill cloth. On the inside of the bottom, they pre-installed these threaded inserts for the crossover board, and they even included a PCB board for the crossover. One of the most difficult parts about building a kit is figuring out the crossover layout, but the PCB is already laid out and labeled, and all you have to do is assemble it. So keep watching and I'll show you how to do that. If these drivers sound anywhere near as good as they look, then this kit is gonna blow you away. Just look at how beefy this mid-range is. Part of the reason it looks so beefy is because the magnet is shielded. Behind that shield is a Neo magnet. Now, if you wanted to play with the driver itself, it is available on the Parts Express website for about $105 each. The tweeters are also from HiVi Swan, the Q1R. These look to be about $20 on the Parts Express website. The one online has a 15-watt power handling. This one's got a 30-watt power handling, so it may not be the same driver. Now, the kit itself is $240 on Amazon for just $10 less than just buying the raw drivers. You get the entire kit. Now, when I say entire kit, I've never seen a kit quite this complete. Obviously, you get the MDF knockdown cabinets, the drivers, the grills, the grill cloth, all of the crossover parts. Plus, you get every last bit of mounting hardware you would want for mounting those crossovers and grills. I'm going to assemble this with clamps and wood glue. I find that it's easier to lay out some tape and then lay all the parts down on top of the tape before slathering all the edges with wood glue. The tape will hold everything in place when you add clamps later. Some people just tape things together and don't even use clamps. Make sure you put glue on all 4 sides of the brace and all 4 sides of every piece. And note that the brace is offset. It's closer to the top than it is to the bottom. Then fold everything together before placing the final piece. In this case, it's one of the sides in that last position. Then start clamping. I recommend using strap clamps for projects like this. I picked up these from Harbor Freight and I absolutely hate them. The problem is that the straps are far too long. So you end up fighting with the extra strap while trying to clamp everything into position. I think that these right here from Bessie would work a lot better because they have a spool for the excess strap. My advice is to go ahead and grab some when you order the kit. 4 will be enough to do the trick. 8 if you want to clamp up both enclosures at the same time. I went ahead and ordered a pair. If they work better than the Harbor Freight models, I'll grab another pair. Now, I had enough of these strap clamps to glue up one of the enclosures, so I had to use bar clamps on the other. It'll be interesting to see how the different clamp methods turned out. While the glue's drying, I recommend that you work on the crossover. This is the first time I've ever soldered to a circuit board. I'm a little bit intimidated by that. I'm not a professional. This is the DIY audio guy channel, not the pro audio channel. There's a good chance that if you see me do something on camera, it's the first time I've ever done it, which probably isn't all that smart because you're gonna see me screw things up. The circuit board is labeled quite clearly and fairly self-explanatory. You really only need the instructions to verify where to attach the resistors. I'm gonna start with the larger inductor, the coil. Okay, what I wanna point out here is the way this is set up. You can see a little through hole here and a little through hole here. And you can see that the spool that this inductor is on has a wire here and a wire here. The wire wire here in the middle goes into that middle through hole. I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on the underside of this inductor. The instructions recommend gluing parts to the PCB. I reached out to them and asked what kind of glue. Their answer was just a little bit vague. It needs to be something that doesn't emit any kind of corrosive as it cures. So I ordered this stuff right here. I have no idea if it's appropriate. If you have experience with circuit boards, please tell me down in the comments what kind of adhesive you recommend using when putting parts onto a circuit board. The instructions also say to put zip ties on the inductors. You can see holes in the board for the zip ties. Then you want to move on to the longer capacitor. That capacitor, along with the inductor, is going to give you a second order low pass filter on the woofer. From there we move to the high pass side, and we have two resistors to attenuate the tweeter. I don't think the order matters, but the instructions show the 1.5 ohm resistor going in that middle slot, and then the 6.8 ohm going in the outer slot. From there you move on to the smaller coil and the shorter capacitor. After you glue it all down, I recommend washing your hands and wiping down the PCB board with something non-corrosive. That way you make sure you don't have any adhesive on those PCB traces that might prevent you from getting a good solder connection. The kit included speaker wire. I cut that in half and then half again for the wire that runs from the board to the drivers. Then I grabbed a piece of leftover wire from a previous project for the wire that runs from the terminal cup to the crossover board. That way I've got plenty of wire to work with when I assemble everything later. Keep watching to catch that part. Interestingly enough, the terminal cup included with the kit has two pairs of inputs. This is for bi-amping, but the circuit board is not set up for bi-amping. The crossovers looked like they turned out okay. Let's see how the enclosures turned out. Now, one box was strapped and the other one was clamped. The straps did a much better job of clamping these beveled pieces together, so don't be afraid to drop some extra cash on some good strap clamps. The cheap ones clearly worked just fine. They're just hard to use. A little bit of sanding and those seams will just disappear. Check this out right here. The kit even came with veneer. You don't have to use it. You can use a wood veneer or paint the enclosure, whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of a kit. It's yours. You can make it your own. One good thing about this veneer, you don't need to apply any kind of a finish. So after you've got it stuck to the enclosure, you're ready to install the drivers and play some music. I've never worked with this type of material before, so once again, I'm doing something for the first time and filming it. I'm not sure what type of adhesive I need to use on this veneer, so I'm just going to use some contact cement. I reached out to HiVi and they said use glue, but didn't give any kind of clarification as to what type. One thing that I don't like about it, at some point this roll of veneer was flattened and I can't get it to lay flat. So I recommend that you roll it out flat a few days before you plan to use it, and maybe put something heavy on it to get rid of these little bumps and ridges in the material. Now those bumps shouldn't make any difference, because once you smooth it out onto the enclosure, the adhesive will stick and it'll flatten right out, which it did. I really struggled to get this stuff to stick to the enclosure. I ended up with a bunch of air bubbles and a bunch of seams. If you're not comfortable with a few imperfections and mistakes and learning from them along the way, then just buy your own speakers. The biggest mess was on the front of the first enclosure, and I thought that'll be fine because this is going to be covered by the grill when I'm finished, so I figured I would just press on. That was a mistake. Okay, the veneer is done, and this is the ugliest thing I have ever made in my entire life. I completely screwed this up. I don't blame the kit, I don't blame the material, I don't blame the adhesive. This was just entirely due to my inexperience working with this type of material. Looking back, I can see that at the very least, I needed 2 more hands. I should have phoned a friend to ask for some help. Or maybe I should have taken a few minutes to cut the material down to more manageable sizes. But in any case, this is ruined. So now I've got to rip the veneer off and try again. The good news is that I happen to have some really nice mahogany veneer that I picked up from Parts Express. I always keep a roll of some kind of hardwood veneer around just in case I need it. Now, the downside to using this kind of hardwood veneer is that it needs to be finished. In other words, you might need to stain it to get the look that you want, but at the very least you need to seal it. And that means wasting a lot of time watching paint dry. So I'll need to finish this project in another video. As soon as that's done, I'm gonna post part 2 right over here. I'm Justin, this is the DIY Audio Guy YouTube channel, and I will see you on the next adventure.